Right, hey guys, and welcome to my review of The Witcher Nightmare of the Wolf. So, I just recently watched this, and I think that it is a decent animation film. Decent, but it is not deserving of the title The Witcher. I feel that this is not close to Witcher lore. It doesn't really stay on the style the Witchers are made. I feel that the Witcher TV series, in fact, is more accurate in at least most of the scenes and whatever. And I think that what's his name, Henry Cavill, actually like made sure that certain things are really accurate to the game that he played as well, because I know he's a fan of the game, and I personally have played The Witcher 2 and Witcher 3. I didn't play the first one, but I've watched gameplay and whatever. Because when the first one came out, I barely bothered about it, but I think the second one really caught my attention, and the third one was pretty much the best installment. And I haven't read the books, but I have caught up on some Reddit forums and whatever, just to know some lore, because sometimes I like to read about the lore of The Witcher and certain things, like certain monsters and whatever, and what they have. So let me share you my thoughts and the what I feel really didn't stand out to me in this film, and certain things that actually did stand out perhaps. So the story starts off with the young Vasimir. Vasimir, as you all may know, is the mentor of Geralt of Rivia. And when you play The Witcher, Vasimir is already an aged Witcher. He's a really old Witcher, and he's the one who is still in charge of the school of like the wolf school of the Witchers. And in this story, you really see Vasimir's like childhood, where he is spending time with his childhood friend, like what's her name? Yeah, Ilyana. So her name is Ilyana, and then later she grows older, and her name is changed to Lady Zerbst, because I think she marries one of these Zerbst lords in the like this kingdom that she's living in, and she becomes the advisor to the king. And she is one of the main characters together with Vasimir. And then there is a witch called Tetra, a very very powerful witch. This one on the left hand side here, and these three basically are the core characters in the story. So you can call her Lady Zerbs or Ilyana, but they're the same person. And then there is Tetra, and then there is Vasimir. So you see Vasimir also as a child, like as a kid, and he's playing around with Ilyana. They're kind of the childhood friends who make promises of what they want to be when they want to grow up. But then Vasimir sees how a Witcher actually comes, slays some monsters, and gains a lot of coin. And so he baits Vasimir to become a Witcher. He does it almost like subconsciously, but he knows that the coin will attract Vasimir. And Vasimir actually does leave his friend Ilyana behind to venture off to be something more than what he is, which is like a slave. I guess they're like living in the slums, sort of washing dishes and whatever. And they all just work for the king and the kingdom, and they are servants basically. Everyone is like a servant to the king or whatever. So Vasimir runs off. He goes to become a witcher, and I think the best part of this entire film for me was the way that they transform the children by putting them through the multiple tests, by poisoning them, forcing them to churn all sorts of potions, enchanting them, and the entire transformation process that they underwent to become witchers, showing you how the childs were truly filtered and not all of them survived. This film is R rated for pretty obvious reasons, because you do see some forms of nudity. Some monsters are nude, like the monster's body is ugly and whatever, but it's still nude. You can see like the features of a woman's body on them. Other than that, there's a lot of gore and violence. It's mainly that there's no real sex scenes, although I would have liked to see some. It would have been more true to the nature of The Witcher, but we haven't seen that from the Henry Cavill version either. So that could be the completely family friendly sort of version. This could be maybe pushed a little further, but they really didn't want to go into that. But Vasimir, you can see that he enjoys his coin and whatever, but we don't really see him getting laid. I don't know why, because if you play as the Witcher, you get laid a lot more often than you actually do in the series or this film. And after the transformation of the children into Witchers and whatever, we come back to the story of the present day Vasimir, who is very much into earning coin. and he is becoming a very renowned witcher, you know, looking for like really difficult monsters to hunt and all of these things. And what happens is this, what do you call this? What's her name? This sorceress, or this, yeah, this witch basically. Um, sorry, let me get her name again. Tetra, right? So Tetra is against the Witchers, and she tries to advise the king to put a price on their heads and wipe out the Witcher schools in their kingdom because they believe that they're practicing some foul magic, and that these people are like, mutated crossbreeds, things that shouldn't have happened, creations, out of nature, and their existence also sort of encourages more half-breed creatures to be formed and whatever, only to realize later that there is a half-breed called Kitsu, which is, I believe, an elf that was kidnapped and experiments were done to her, and she's actually a half-bred elf that was really powerful in illusion magic. So initially, it's like it controls this forest. Like a forest monster, like a forest creature of the woods or something. I think it's called a lesion or something like that. So a lesion or something. And initially, Vasimir has his doubts on what could be controlling the lesion, but later found out that it was Kitsu, who is this very powerful half-breed elf that was mutated through dark magic as well, for the sake of trying to create a crossbreed that is more powerful than the Witchers. However, the experiment didn't really turn out the way they wanted, and so Kitsu turns out to be the enemy. So Ileana, tries to get things right, try to get the king to support the Witchers. So what she does is she sends Tetra and Vasimir on an adventure together to go to the forest to try to slay this, this Kitsu, this monster who they have no idea of yet. Of course, they don't know the origin yet, but they do find out later that it's Kitsu, and it's a half breed and whatever that was created. And there were hints, like through the story, that the monsters are created by the witchers themselves so that they can earn coin. But Vasimir brushes off the possibility, and eventually it's revealed that Vasimir's mentor, admits to the fact that yes, some monsters were actually created so that the witchers can continue to gain coin, and so that they have a purpose to exist. That way they can continue to capture children, torture them, turn them into more witchers, and this process can go on so they don't, so they continue existing basically. But all this like story sounds really nice, really impressive, and there's also a really sweet, touching sort of love story between Ileana and Vasimir, especially the scene where Ileana is like really an old lady, right? She says, I'm 70, and then Vasimir says, I am too, and they actually kiss in this very romantic scene. I found it really beautiful. I found it really like a very honest scene, that Vasimir still has feelings for this girl that he left behind, almost 50 years plus ago, and he loves her no matter what she looks like. I felt that there was truly true love. There's nothing between Tetra and Vasimir that, like they just mock each other for a bit, but they turn out to be absolutely mortal enemies towards the end. Like the entire relationship that these two built, I felt had no plot points in the story. Like they try to show them spending time together, getting to know Kitsu, exploring things, and challenging the enemy and whatever. But in the end, she just turns out to be straight up, against him. He can't even talk to her. He can't even like negotiate things with her. There's really no relationship going on between these two. So there was no need to have to build anything between them, I guess. But what really bothers me is the design of these spells, like certain art signs. Even this fire bending. This is straight up fire bending beyond that of Avatar, because Vasimir can blow up so much flames that he can completely torch like an entire giant monster. That Tetra sort of puts it into like this large ice ball or something. He punches his hand through the ice ball and lights the entire thing up in flames, and the monster dies roasted inside it. I have not seen such powers from a Witcher. This is not true to the lore. This is like even this scene where he commands all of his fellow Witchers to cast the sign together so that they can push off the enemies. I thought it would be like a shortwave impact, but no, it looks like some Kamehameha shit, that blows up through the entire bridge, and the enemy wave goes flying, and they fight like nearly 100 monsters in the end on like a bridge, which makes absolutely no sense. Like if you read the books, which I didn't, but I got like snippets of it from Reddit. But if you play the games or you watch the TV series, which I did for both, you realize how much of trouble Geralt of Rivia has to go through just to take on like a single monster. The amount of time he has to put into research about the monster, the amount of time he has to, to prepare the right potions, the right antidotes. He has to make sure he's challenging the right monster. He has to study it, and mistakes can get him killed. And he's really beaten up by the end of every hunt, which is why he's deserving of this coin. But Vasimir is almost fine. Vasimir is like the ultimate, Witcher that never gets hurt. He's always fine until the very last fight. He barely shed any blood, and in the very last fight, he fights like 100 monsters and emerges victorious together with all of his other dead, Witcher allies. But nonetheless, they are victorious because they defeated the monsters. And the monsters are summoned by the witches. Tetra brings like an army of wizards and whatever, and they summon like these portals that they open up for monsters to come and attack the witchers so that they can wipe out the the wolf clan of the Witchers. And the title Nightmare of the Wolf, I'm not sure what it is actually trying to, like, is it the nightmare of being part of the wolf school? Is that what it is? I'm not sure. But yeah, the lore itself just felt so off world. Like, if this wasn't called The Witcher, trust me, I wouldn't be bothered by it. I would take it lightly. But I feel that having known about The Witcher, this feels really like they're just using the title just to get views, and people, like, this is honestly not what you're gonna expect, right? This is nothing like the original way the Witchers are done. It's something like the last Skywalker, like the last episode of Star Wars didn't make sense because it brought in a lot of these new Force abilities, these new scenes and whatever that all of a sudden work, right? And has never been used before by all these other generations of Jedi's, but all of a sudden it works and it's never to be seen again. It's similar to how Vasimir can use so much of firepower, even almost as much as the witch herself can, and she calls it like chaos magic and whatever, but he can use it like completely at will, like a firebender, and he can just throw flames out continuously, almost continuously, with little to no cooldowns. Like, he doesn't have any need to restraint. Like, even when they fight on the bridge, he tells the witches to like drop their weapons and use their sign to fight against a horde of like 100 creatures, only for them to pick up their weapons like 2 seconds later and continue fighting. Like, certain things just didn't make sense. Like, what are they trying to show? What are they trying to do? Like, are they trying to achieve something? At first I thought he's going to cast all the signs to try to like crack the bridge to cancel off the bridge, but no, they actually fought 100 monsters, and somehow he survived. He used potions and whatever, fight, defeated the witch, defeated Kitsu, and unfortunately Ilyana dies towards the end when Kitsu plans her death by creating an illusion, and yeah, she unfortunately dies, succumbs to her pains and whatever. This is the guy who played as Vasimir's mentor, whatever his name is. His character is okay, nothing really great about it. I would have liked it to see some sort of a father and son relationship, maybe a little bit more dialogues between them, something that added more value, but there was nothing really of value between them. Relationship with Tetra as well wasn't really great. It was just Ilyana and Vasimir, basically. That's the only relationship in the story that you can look forward to. There was a lot of action, I have to say. The animation is okay. It's not the most impressive or anything. It's decent animation. There's a lot of action which I can appreciate, which is fine. But this is a 90-minute film. For a 90-minute R-rated film, you can't really show many things. And The Witcher is more so about the world building and the lore. But here it's like almost, I think, 60-70% action, which is new to me. It's new to me, but at the same time, it really doesn't feel like what the Witcher series is true to. And I quite honestly can't say I like this. Yeah, so it's a decent story, and if it wasn't The Witcher, I would probably like it more. But knowing that it carries the title The Witcher, it's something like that feeling I had when I watched Nancy Drew. That new Nancy Drew played by that girl from It. Um, it doesn't make sense because it's not true to the lore of Nancy Drew, like her style and her behavior and the way she does things. Like, if she was called someone else, I think I'll be fine with it. But calling her Nancy Drew and then doing things so differently, I think needs to be justified in some ways. And even if you have a modern take on things, I think it's fine. Like, you have a modern Nancy Drew, so you want to show her like she's in the era of mobile phones and whatever. I think that would have been okay. But things like this, like The Witcher, you know that the sequel to this, because at the end of this film, you actually see Geralt of Rivia being revealed as one of the surviving students of Vasimir, and Vasimir adopts these children to train them to become the new Witchers. And if Geralt of Rivia is there, so this is still true to the lore of the Witcher. So this is the Vasimir that we see in the games. But the what the Vasimir can do in the games and what Geralt can do in the games and what the other witches can do is it's totally different from what this guy can do in this film. It's not the same. It's not linked to the story. It's not aligned. If they call this The Witcher 2099, something like that, I wouldn't mind. I know it's a different story. I know it's nothing to do with the original lore, but carrying the name The Witcher, and giving us scenes to show that this is linked to the original lore, I feel that it doesn't stay true to what it is. It's not really, yeah, it's not accurate in any way, and it's just unfortunately the way it is. Regardless, let me just look at what IMDb has given it. I'm pretty sure it's a bit overrated here. Boy. Yeah, it's 7.5. I think it's too high of a rating. I'm gonna pull out what mine is, and I hope you guys are not too annoyed about it. Let me see. Okay, I'm gonna put this out. It's a 3 out of 10 for me. Okay, let me hear me out. If it wasn't titled The Witcher, okay, if it wasn't titled The Witcher, I would probably rate this a 4 out of 10. You can take it as a 5, you can take it as a 3, but it's an average. It's a really average animation story. It has some good moments, some sweet moments, and some really nice, like intense moments, like the children turning into witchers, Ileana's romance with Vasimir, and also the ending twist with Kitsu. Realizing that the illusion was created by Kitsu so that he ends up killing Ileana, and all these things. But we've sort of seen these things. Injustice, Joker uses what do you call this? Uh, the Scarecrow's fear gas and mixes it with kryptonite to make Superman kill Lois Lane. There's so many versions of this thing happening. But anyway, illusion used so that the main character kills the woman he loves is essentially what the plot was in the end. So certain things like are really intense. There's a nice twist and whatever, but most of the world building and the character building I felt carried no weight. Like there was a king in the kingdom. He barely has a role. He just says things every now and then when he needs to. Tetra does most of the work, but she has no relationship, and her time spent with the Witcher amounted to nothing. And then the father figure for Vasimir, who was played by I'm not sure which guy he is, but his mentor also has no real bond or relationship to him that carries any weight towards the end. He like almost wants to fight Vasimir to the death in one scene when Vasimir finds out that they are actually mutating creatures to keep the Witcher business going. But all of a sudden they're friends when they realize that Tetra has brought an army to kill all of them. So there's no real weight to their decisions. Like, to change from wanting to kill someone to wanting to work alongside someone, I think is not a straightforward thing. You really gotta weigh the consequences. Like, you really gotta show how important it is to someone to want to do that. Like, all of a sudden to care about something that you never really cared about, I think really makes a big difference. But anyway, these are my points, and these are just my opinions. Of course, if you enjoyed the film and whatever, it's great, good to know. If you ask me that, I liked all the fight scenes, all that was fun. I wish it was a little bit longer so that we actually got more Witcher lore, and I feel that I should have felt more true to the original lore of The Witcher. I think casting Science and all shouldn't turn him into some sort of a semi sorcerer, sword wielding, like I don't know, some Highlander type stuff. He should just be a guy with a sword who can once in a while cast spells to get the advantage on his opponent. But he's not a wizard. Like witchers are not wizards. They're not as powerful as witches or wizards. They can't cast flamethrowers. They can light up an entire ball into flames and roast their enemies. If they could do that, Geralt would have done that throughout the entire Witcher series. Even at max level, you can't do that. So yeah, it's just certain things like that that really bugged me, and I feel that they need to tone it down, especially if they plan to make a sequel. I think that it's not too late to go back to the original lore. But yeah, they really gotta like decide, right? Either you call it The Witcher, follow the original story, or don't call it The Witcher, or call it something else, like Witcher alternate version, 2099 or some shit like that, and people will buy it. But I'm not buying it. So yep, that's it for me. As I said, if it wasn't titled Witcher, this might be a 4 out of 10 for me. Nothing else is very outstanding in the film. The music is decent, nothing really great. Animation is okay. It's not the most impressive because, in terms of the fighting styles and whatever, it's nice to see a lot of action, but the animation for the fighting is not really impressive. You know, it's not like Kimetsu no Yaiba type animation or whatever to even compare in the fight scenes. That anime had some insane fight scene moments, by the way. So, yeah, it's nothing close to that. And also the characters and the likability as all. I already explained to you the relationships and how the thing goes, and the story is it's a nice story, as I said. It's a decent story. It's just the way it was executed because of all these the way certain lore points and plot points were carried. I felt just didn't do it justice. So yeah, I probably give it 2 full points for the story and 1 point because there's good action in it, but everything else I feel falls very short. The lore, the world building, the plot twists, the intelligence, the creativity in the story, all of that really falls pretty flat for me. So yeah, this is it for me. This is my rating. I would like to see something different. I feel the Witcher TV series is just so much better. I'm not sure why they would even bother making an animation all of a sudden just to milk the series. Let me look at it like this. This is an 8.2. I feel that, yeah, this is actually pretty close. I would have rated the series probably a 7 out of 10, to be honest. I think, yeah, I'm not sure whether I already put out a rating, but for me, this is a 7 out of 10. The Witcher series is really, really nice. It's really decent. It's not the most exciting, but it's true to the lore and the world building of The Witcher. The relationships he forms with all the people. Every character is given some sort of weight. The cast is, a pretty budget cast. I would say Henry Cavill probably ate most of the budget. I think that's pretty obvious here. So yeah, you can take it as a 6. You can take it as an 8, I guess, and is what IMDb puts it. But this is by far way better than whatever this was. And of course, it's not really, you can't really compare the two because this is just a single, 90-minute sort of film. But I feel that they shouldn't do this so half-assed. Like, this is the scene where they turn the kids into the Witchers. This is pretty intense, by the way. Like, they should have probably just stretched this out another half an hour, given it like more R-rated scenes, maximized it. Actually made some relationships matter, given better dialogues to the characters. I feel the dialogues, especially between mentors and friends and all these things, really matters because they carry weight in stories. But hey, that's just me. All right, I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.